I'm Ralph Bagnall, host of Wood Academy TV on Amazon Prime. And today, we're going to do a live build of a 3-in-1 jig. This jig can be used as a tall fence for our table saw. It can also be used as a straight line rip jig for squaring up raw material that needs a clean edge, or it can also be used as a tapering jig. So 3 jigs in 1, but it's all going to show you how we use the MATCHFIT dovetail clamp system, and I'm going to explain the bits that we have, how to set it up, how to use it with your router tables, and get it all working the way you want to in your shop. So, let's get started. As a tall fence, some of the things that you need to do, some tasks here at the router, the table saw, require more support up here than your fence alone will give you. And one of these is tapering a panel. Now this can be done fairly safely once we've got the tall fence in place. Because of the tall fence, we can get a clean cut and a safe cut with our hands being nowhere near the saw blade. But we also have the advantage, because of the way this jig is designed, of taking it off the fence. And here we've got a pattern of the dovetail grooves on our board, which allow us to use the clamps. And we can actually use this jig for edging raw pieces of stock that, if you don't have a jointer, you may not be able to clean the edge up. So let's get the saw back to where it belongs at 0. Run it up a bit. All right, now we can slide this over so that the jig is just right next to the blade here. And we're going to set our board so that the edge of that is just beyond the blade. So now, even though our board is rough and we don't have a flat edge to run against our rip fence, we don't need that anymore. We're holding the board, the plank, onto our jig, and the jig is actually riding against the fence, providing that straight edge we need. There we've got a straight, clean edge, ready to do the next part of our project. So let's look at the board itself and talk about the MATCHFIT dovetail clamps. So with the MATCHFIT clamp, the head of the clamp is actually forged into a 14-degree half-inch dovetail profile. So when we put that same profile into a piece of wood, or plywood, or MDF, the head slides inside the board, and the clamp is held in place. It's very much like working with T-track. But instead of having to plow a groove, add a piece of extruded aluminum T-track, and then use clamps that fit into that T-track, we're just going to plow the 14-degree half-inch dovetail and add the clamps directly. It's very convenient, very easy, and it's a lot less expensive than buying that T-track. Plus, it's really good for throwaway jigs. When you have a jig that you want to use once or twice and toss it away, that's fine. You can do that. You're not wasting that expensive aluminum extrusion. Now, this can be done with any 14-degree half-inch dovetail bed. It has to be a half inch across the bottom and a 14-degree angle. It is important, it is critical that that is a 14-degree angle. A 7 won't work and a 10 won't work. It has to be the 14. But it's a very, very common bit, which is why Henry Lang, the inventor of all this stuff, that's why we came up with that idea and that design. But Microjig also does make our own version of the Ducktail Bed. So we make our own bit. It is a half-inch wide, 14-degree bit. But what makes this different is right here at the top of the cutting edge, we want that groove to be 3/8 of an inch deep. At that 3/8 inch mark, we've radiused the carbide on the bit so that when you cut your grooves, the top edge of the groove is automatically rounded over and smoothed out. We don't have to go back and sand out the sharp edges. And again, if you're going to cut a groove once in a blue moon, that's fine. Use the bit you have. You don't have to buy a special bit. But if you're going to be making jigs and fixtures on a regular basis, this is definitely the right way to work. So now, let's take a look at how we're going to actually plow the grooves. Now, the one thing I'm going to tell you is, I've got a couple of these pieces preset for the different stages as we make this. Kind of like on a cooking show, where they show themselves putting something in the oven, but they don't have to wait around for 20 minutes while it cooks. And I've made them a couple of different sizes, and I've used different spacings on the dovetails. And I did that specifically to show you that one of the great things about making your own jigs is you get to do what works for your shop. You don't have to follow all of our plans. And speaking of plans, Morgan Hopp from Microjig has done a great job. He's put together a complete set of plans with drawings and everything that you need to be able to build one of these for yourself. You can check that out on the Microjig website. If you click on the resources tab at the top of the website and then click on plans, you'll see the 3-in-1 jig. Brand new plans there from Morgan, and they'll help you make this up. But what we're going to do is we've got 2 grooves running about 2 inches in from the edge, and that's kind of a standard. And it works because in Morgan's plan, he shows you some interesting little stops that you can use with the sled to hold your tapered part in position if you're cutting tapers or things like that. So it's really a good option to have those long dovetails in there as well. And then the cross dovetails, you saw me holding the wood part with it, that's also what we use to hold it to your fence. Now, if you're going to be using it as a tall fence, this one's a little bit shorter than my fence, because my fence runs quite long here. But in reality, I like to have the tall fence the same length as, at least, I like it as the same length as my fence, but it needs to be at least the same length as your table itself. Because what you don't want to have happen is to start your cut before the front of your table, and you don't want to be coming off the back of your fence, your tall fence, before you leave the back of the table. So the fence should be at least the length of your table. But obviously, if you're using a job site saw or a smaller saw than what I've got here, my cabinet saw, your jig doesn't need to be this long. And then the other thing is the width of the jig. This one's 9. Another one of the pieces that I'm going to be using is 8. I think 10's about the right width. But again, if you have a smaller saw with less room to work, you may want to reduce that width just a little bit. So that's something to keep in mind as well. So I think we're done with the table saw for the moment. So I'm going to wheel it out of our way. One of the advantages of having everything on wheels. There we go. And now we're going to bring in the first of our router tables. I've got 2 router tables set up, mostly because I'm doing a couple of different jobs here, and we'll talk about that in a second. Get this one locked up and ready to rock. So the first table here is set up for our relief groove. Now the relief groove anytime you're using what we call an undercutting bit, where the wider part of your groove that you're cutting is inside the material, and there's a narrower neck on the outside of the material, that's an undercutting bit. So a T-slot bit, a dovetail bit, that sort of thing. The problem is there's less room for the waste, as your router bit is cutting, to leave the groove. And although the router bit, whether ours or somebody else's, can certainly plow through the 3/4 plywood at 3/8 of an inch depth, it's really hard on the bit because it's trying to recut all of that waste that's not escaping from the groove, and it's going to overheat the bit. It's going to give you a less than perfectly clean groove. It's much better to plow a relief groove first, relieving the stress and getting some of that material out of the way before we try to do the dovetail cut. So here, I've got a relief bit set up. I like the relief groove in this case. It always should be just a little bit smaller than the profile you're going to ultimately cut. So in this case, we're going to use a 1/4 inch relief groove, 1/4 inch wide, and about 5/16, 11/32 deep, something like that. Microjig does make a relief bit. It is a 1/4 inch wide, and then right at the top, again at the proper height, we've got another round over here. This is going to plow the relief groove for us and do a little bit of a round over at the top of the material, so that once again we have a situation where there's less chip out and tearing at the edges of the groove. So I've got what did I do with my part here? Oh, here we go. So here's the part we're going to start doing the relief groove on. And again, this one's about 10 inches wide, about 30 inches long. This would be a very good tall fence for my larger table saw. I've marked out where I want the cross grooves to go on this piece. And so I already know that I want 2 inches for the long grooves. So I'm going to use my grip blocks, and let me see if I can move this router table so we can get a little bit of a better look at how we're working here. Turn this down just a bit. This is live television, folks. This is the way it works. There we go. And I'm going to turn it sideways so you can actually see the work being done. This is my crank router table. Quite a nice one. And again, I have a fairly large router in here, but it doesn't have to be. We're only making a 1/4 inch groove. And this groove can be done here at the router table, or it can actually be done with a dado set on the table saw, which I do quite a lot as well. So let's go ahead and make that mill. Now, as you can see, even with a straight cutter, there's a lot of stuff left over in the groove here. That's exactly what I'm talking about. With a dovetail cut here, without doing this relief groove first, that would be a real mess to try and clean up, and your bit's going to try and recut that over and over again, and all it's going to do is generate a lot of extra heat. So I can do 2 of those, one on each long edge, but then we want to make some cross cuts. And obviously the cross cuts on the ends aren't a problem. That's easy to do. But what happens when we want to do one that's fairly deep in? My fence on my router table, and this is a good sized router table, but the fence is only going to come back on this one right to about there, which here's the mark on my board, here's my bit, that's as far back as my fence can go. How are we going to mill that? Well, we could set up a straight edge, we could use a hand router, but there's a better way to do that. A little bit simpler. I'm going to show this to you now because it's a really good trick to have up your sleeve. The router bit in your router table, although our fence typically runs this way, it doesn't have to. So we can take and set up, there's our groove right there. I can set up a straight edge here on my router table, running the opposite direction, because most router tables have a lot more distance side to side from the bit to the edge than they do from the bit to the back. So here, I can actually use my straight edge here to guide the part. Now, it's narrow here and long that way, so I don't want it to twist, so I am going to employ a squaring block. Here I've got a block that I can put behind the part to help me keep it and guide it straight across. It's a backer, very much like you'd use with your regular fence, but this way, with a little bit of care, we can make sure that we get that groove cut right in the middle of the board where our regular fence might not be able to do it. There's our cut. So, if your router table doesn't have the space to move the fence back far enough to be able to put grooves in the middle of this jig or our 360 sled, if you're doing that build or whatever, you still have the ability here to do that by putting a straight edge on the side and running your part front to back rather than side to side. So keep that in mind the next time you get stuck doing something. So once we've got all of the relief grooves cut, and again, you can cut the relief grooves on the saw with a dado blade as well, or you can use a router table. Rather than having you wait around while I change router bits, I'm just going to change router tables. This is my folding router table, the plans for which in the build was done at the beginning of season 2 of Academy. I've got a plug right here. This one is already set up with the micro jig dovetail bed. So we're in good position to do that. And here's a board that I've already put some grooves. All of the relief grooves have been done already, and I've done a couple of the dovetail grooves as well. So once again, here I can use the fence. And with my fence, I'd want to use the backer board again. I always like to, whenever I'm working with the narrow part of a piece against the fence, I like to have a backer behind it, which helps keep it square to my fence while I'm working. So I can do that, and I can use the gripper over here to help me push it along. And again, what we're going to do is we're going to let this bit clean out that slot and give us the overall cut that we want. Again, a little bit of dust in there, but once we get that cleaned out. So there's our dovetail cut. I don't know if we can even see that on the, there we go, a little bit better. And then it's nice and smoothly rounded over on the top. The bit allows us to do that because it's got the round over built in. Now, I could move this fence back again and make the next cut, move it over again and make the next cut, or, as we talked about before, we can take this off, use the straight edge like we did before. That trick works on most types of router tables. So I can take that off there. Line up my next cut. Now the beauty part here is, although you want to have your dovetail bit centered on the relief cut, it doesn't have to be perfect. Because there is a bit of an overlap, but the dovetail bit is definitely larger. It's going to cut a 1/2 inch wide by probably about 11/16 at the top. No, 11/32 wide groove at the top with the roundovers. So you don't have to be exactly centered. As long as it's visually centered, you're probably good to go, and life will work out just fine. So let's go ahead and mill that piece. And there you go. So we can just work our way along. I can flip that over, do the second side, and just work toward the center from the two ends and get all of these pieces grooved. And ultimately what you end up with is this piece here. And again, this allows us to clamp boards from using the clamps coming in. It also allows us to set clamps this way so we can use it for cross-cutting if we want. But this particular jig is designed to work off the fence. The table saw fence is what's guiding everything for us. So we can, our 360 sled is a little bit more geared toward the, using the miter slot to run those things. Now, for those of you who have stuck around for this long, I'm going to tell you about a special deal that's available right now on the Microjig website, and it's a really good deal too. Our current sale is for 2 pairs. Well, to begin with, the dovetail clamps, the pair of them, are on sale, normally $45 on our website. As of right now, they're $39.95. So you're getting $5 off for buying a pair of the dovetail clamps, which is a very good deal. In addition, if you decide to buy 2 pairs of clamps, you're going to get the dovetail router bit absolutely free, which is another $30 value. So if you think about that, you're going to get $10 off for, or $5 off for each clamp for $10, and you're going to get the $30 router bit for free. You're now saving about $40 off the cost of the clamps and the bit if you were to buy them under normal circumstances. So that's a really good deal. Now I am going to tell you, when you go to the website, put the clamps in your cart, and then when you put the bit in your shopping cart, the bit will show up at a $0 price. But you have to put it in there. Our system isn't quite sophisticated enough yet to be able to automatically put the bit in for you. But I also want you to know that the bit, both of our relief bit and our regular router bit, our dovetail router bit, are available in 3 different shank sizes. So you've got the 1/2 inch shank that you see here. This one, our relief bit, is a 1/4 inch shank, but they both come in 1/4 and in 1/2. And for those customers of ours who have European machines or are overseas, we have an 8mm shank as well. So we are working on keeping up with the European standards as well. If you are outside of the United States and you want to order the clamps at the special, please don't try to do it online. It's not going to work out. Email us, and one of our or call our office during normal business hours, and one of our people will help you get that ordered and get it set up for you. But for those of you who are within the U.S., it's easy. You can all do it all over the internet. So Morgan, did we have any questions that I need to address before we get done here? No, the relief bit, okay, so Morgan's telling me that some people are asking about the relief bit and whether it's available. It certainly is available. The one that you saw me using earlier today on the router table is a 1/2 inch shank. This one's 1/4 inch. They are available on our website, The relief bits are not included in any of the Pro Packs or any of that sort of thing at this time. It is strictly an item that you order by itself on its own. And as far as I know, at the moment, it's not part of any particular sales set. But it is available on our website, and we do have them in stock, I believe. Now, the other thing I wanted to introduce you all to just before we go is the newest member of the MATCHFIT clamp system family, and that's the new MATCHFIT AP clamp. Now, this is essentially the larger brother of our standard original MATCHFIT clamp. Same 14-degree half-inch ducktail profile on the head, but the bar is actually significantly longer, so you have a deeper clamping range. It comes with our X-Pad here, which is an accessory that goes onto it, and what I think is the best feature on it, there's a spring mounted to the arm. When you clamp with this type of clamp under normal circumstances, as the clamp applies pressure, it lifts the arm up to bind against the post, the bar, and that's what gives you your clamping pressure. The only problem is that it can slide, as you see this doing here, or your head can move. If you're trying to load and unload parts, that can be inconvenient. The spring on the AP clamp keeps the bar or the arm automatically adjusted to the bar so that it's in position. So nothing's going to move. Once I set it where I want it, things do not move. It stays where I put it. And I think that's a really, really good advantage. You can always tell the AP because the handle is molded in green on yellow rather than yellow on green. But whichever one you choose, the AP clamp is available now, and it does come with the X-Pad. The X-Pad gives you notches on the clamping face, which makes it really excellent for clamping dowels and other odd pieces. And it also has an angled face to it on one of the notches underneath, which allows you to actually clamp at an angle and essentially apply lateral pressure while you're pushing down with the clamp. And if you check it out on our website, you'll see a graphic that really shows that very well. This is an excellent new clamp. It is now available. It is on our website being sold. And I think this is, Morgan, $30 a unit. Yeah. Unlike our standard clamp is sold in pairs at $45, right now on sale for $39.95. The AP clamp is actually being sold at $30 per unit. This is sold individually, so don't get confused about that. But that's our demo for today for our 3-in-1 jig. Again, remember that the plans for making your own are on the MicroJig website. Go to our resources page. When you click on resources, the drop-down menu will show you plans. The plan for that is on there. Morgan got it all done, so it's all there and ready for you. And you can reach out to us at any time via email at support@microjig.com or by calling our office, 855-RIP-SAFE. That's 747-7233. You can reach out to us. We're here to help you, answer your questions, guide you to new jigs and fixtures and whatnot, whatever you need. That's what we're here for. Thanks for joining us today. I'm Ralph Bagnall with Wood Academy. Many thanks to Morgan Hopp, the wood sorcerer, in his home, and for doing the backup support for me. And we're going to do this again shortly in another couple of weeks, so tune in for the next live event. I think we're going to be doing something with the 360 sled that time, which will give us a chance to not only look at the MATCHFIT system, but also the Zero Play Guide Bar, which is one of my favorite MicroJig products. Thanks again. Everybody have a great weekend. Stay safe out there. And thanks for being a MicroJig customer.